Straight ahead, we'll take a look at the growing Hispanic population in Louisiana. Then we'll take a look at some recent changes in immigration laws that are making it more difficult for Hispanics to become American citizens on today's edition of Folks. Hello everyone, I'm Sonya Masingale. Welcome to Folks. Spanish explorers discovered the Mississippi River in the 16th century, and Spanish soldiers and their families settled a fort city in what is now known as New Orleans. The Spanish association with Louisiana is in many ways older than the state itself. The Hispanic population in Louisiana is growing. Hispanic Americans are a people united by their language, but they come from all races, different cultures, and countries. Governor Edwards was the first governor to acknowledge the Hispanic community as a growing and significant population. He appointed the first assistant to the governor for Hispanic American Affairs, Esperanza Sciortino. News director Rob Hinton talked to Ms. Sciortino about the Hispanic community and their growth as a political force in Louisiana.
When we talk about the Hispanic American population here in Louisiana, approximately how many people are we talking about?
In Louisiana, we're talking about 200,000. Maybe 208, 210,000 in Louisiana. And the New Orleans area, we're talking about 150,000. Now, in New Orleans, this is going to be voting. I mean, you know, it's a lot of our people. They are not registered to vote. That's what we're working right now. Some other, they are not American citizens. Now, they're learning the importance to be an American citizen. And votings, we're talking about 38 to 40,000 Hispanics registered to vote. Our Hispanic community here, I'm talking about the New Orleans metropolitan area, is divided on a sense. We have Kenner, maybe 19,000. We have Terrytown. I think we're going on the 40,000. We have the New Orleans. I'm pretty sure we have over 60,000. I hope I don't miss anyone. I mean, San Bernard, but of course, this is another generation Hispanic. But we have Araby and Chalmette is a new Hispanics there. And somebody mentioned in Shreveport is about 5,000 Hispanics. Baton Rouge between 10 and 13,000. Lake Charles about 3,000 to 4,000. I hope through this office, I can get in touch with the leaders of these communities and get all together. But the governor is very, very interested to hear from them about the problems they have. And all together, and with the help of the governor, maybe we can, something.
Why is it that we are hearing and seeing so much about the Hispanic American population here in Louisiana? Is it that because more and more are migrating from other states?
We have reports, national reports, by the year in 1988, we're going to be almost double. Now, don't ask me how that's going to happen. I mean, if the baby's born faster or some people just cross the border, I don't know. But they have some reports. I'm scared. I'm going to tell you why. I welcome my people. But that's going to be a tremendous problem for any governor in the state of Louisiana. And I tell you this, the new Hispanics coming in, New York, Puerto Rican says, no, we have enough. Miami with the Cubans say, no, no, we got enough. Texas with the Mexican Americans, we got enough. Los Angeles, you know, the Mexican American too. So the state, I think it really is going to be, I don't want to scare everybody in Louisiana, but I think the Hispanics are coming to Louisiana.
More recently, LPB correspondent Lynda Roedts took a look at a group of 600 Cubans in the Oakdale, Louisiana Federal Detention Center. Now, these are not average Hispanic immigrants. These men fled to the United States when Fidel Castro allowed those who did not wish to remain under his government to leave Cuba. Unequipped to deal with American life, these men committed crimes, but they are attempting through this unique program to rehabilitate and earn their citizenship, which has recently become more difficult to obtain.
This is the noon hour at the Federal Detention Center in Oakdale. These men came to the United States 7 years ago from Cuba. Many of them sought a better life for themselves and their families. Others took the opportunity to leave when Fidel Castro opened the doors of the prisons and mental institutions. They are all illegal aliens. In 1980, 120,000 Cubans came to Florida by boat. Most assimilated into this country. But these men are among the 5,000 who got into trouble with the law here and have been convicted of a crime. Although their sentences have been served, these Cubans will only be released when space opens for them at a halfway house. Ramon Cespedes Mora says he couldn't make ends meet on a dishwasher's salary, so he took what he thought would be a shortcut.
I had to pay some rent, and I used to go down there to different officers, and they would try to help us, me and my girlfriends, and then I had to do something, right? Just sell some drugs.
In 1983, Ramon served 14 months in a New Jersey prison for selling heroin. But because he is not a U.S. citizen, he was not released. Transferred to the Atlanta Penitentiary at the end of his sentence, Ramon came here in January. Now a born-again Christian, he prays and waits.
Well, the same way I asked him to you if you go to Cubans for be down there like aliens, and you make some any kind of mistake, and they pick you out and put in the prisons, you don't know when to get out. How do you feel about that? Nobody feel nice about that.
There's a lot of uncertainty among the Cubans, and you can see why. And it's really hard to predict what's going to happen.
Warden J.R. Johnson says under normal conditions, these men would have been returned to Cuba because they all committed crimes. But Castro refuses to take them back. So they wait here, men without a country. Without legal status here, technically still illegal aliens. They have no rights of a U.S. citizen and are not wanted back in their own country.
It's a very strange type of a status. It's called exclusion status, which means technically they've never been admitted to the country at all. Therefore, they're not eligible for bail or bond. They're not able to become naturalized citizens. They're in limbo.
That means there must be some entitlement to adjust their status here, either through special legislation for Cubans or by virtue of relationship to U.S. citizen family members, spouse, children, etc.
But a criminal record gives them almost no chance of ever becoming a citizen. The only way is to get a waiver from the Immigration and Naturalization Service. Marrying an American is a commonly used method to gain one. Education is strictly voluntary. An inmate's biggest deficiency when he arrives in the States is an inability to communicate. Educators say most of the Cubans who come here speak only Spanish, poorly at that. Nearly 90% have reading levels under 3rd grade.
It's a long way. People that become citizens through naturalization earn the right, and it's based upon not only their ability to show they understand the nature and working of our government and history, but that they have been exemplary citizens all along. Citizenship we hold to be very, very important, and is not lightly given out to individuals. As I said, these individuals are fortunate that they're going out on the street under this system. Under normal circumstances, they would have been sent back to their country.
Joining me in the studio to discuss the new immigration law and how it's affecting Hispanics in Louisiana is New Orleans attorney David Kattan, born in Honduras, who specializes in immigration law. Welcome to Folks.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Since you have your pulse on your finger on the pulse of what's going on in immigration, can you tell us what the new immigration law is composed of and what it means to us?
Well, the new immigration law was designed first to legalize the illegal alien population in the United States, and secondly, to impose sanctions on employers who employ illegal aliens, and that way stop the flow of illegals into the United States. That's the main object of it.
When did all of this start?
Well, the law went into effect on November 6th when the President of the United States signed the bill.
So what does that mean in actual people?
Well, that means that as of November 6th, we have a new law. The employers have a certain period of time within which they'll get adjusted to the new law. Until May the 5th of 1987, it doesn't matter whether they have aliens working on a payroll or not. And after that time, they will have a period of 1 year within which they will have a warning period where they, if an alien is caught on the premises working illegally, the employer will be given a warning to the effect that he must get rid of the aliens on his premises. Now, up until that point, he could go. The employer could go a complete year before sanctions could be imposed on him, unless he is caught before that time employing an illegal alien. As far as the illegal himself, anyone who was here prior to January 1, 1982, may qualify for legalization if he was in illegal status prior to that date. In other words, if he came across the border without any documentation, and he establishes he was in the United States prior to January 1, 1982, and if he could show through documentation of any kind that he has resided continuously in the United States since January 1 of 82 till the present time, he may qualify in that case. The second possibility is the person who came in with legal documentation, but his admission period expired prior to January 1 of 1982. He can establish through his little I-94 card, which is a little card they give him when he comes in. If he establishes that it expired prior to January 1, 1982, and he has resided here continuously, except for maybe some trips on an emergency nature, going out of the country for a few days, he can also qualify. The third possibility, and that is the bad one in the whole deal, that if a person entered legally, but he appears to be legal all the way through to this date, say, but prior to January 1 of 82, he became illegal because he did something to violate the law. In other words, a student who was given duration of status until he graduated, maybe this year, but who went out and worked illegally, or a student who didn't carry 12 hours of school work, and things of that nature. Now, if he is illegal, in this case, the government says that the government must have known about it at the particular time and decided not to take any action. And this is where the whole trouble is going to start, with a lot of litigation. In fact, it has already started. I, for one, have filed suit in federal court on that thing, because the word government is used throughout the whole history of the immigration law. They've always used the Immigration and Naturalization Service. Now they use the word government, which clearly means that it was intended that any agency of government could have known about it, like the Internal Revenue if you filed an income tax for working illegally prior to 82, or if you applied for a Social Security card. Immigration Service says no way. It's only if we knew about it and we are the government. And this is the attitude they take. And litigation has already started. As I said, I've already filed a suit in federal court on that particular part of the law.
Do you have any idea how many Hispanic people that's going to affect in the state of Louisiana?
Of the ones that are residents, of course, we don't worry about, but there are roughly, they calculate about 30,000 in the state of Louisiana.
Who are considered illegal?
Yes, who are considered illegal and who would probably be applying.
I see. Why is the Hispanic community so concerned about this? 30,000 people out of 200,000.
Well, they're concerned about it because lots of these people are relatives of the ones that are here. when you speak of an illegal alien, people usually look down upon the illegal aliens as well. This guy came in illegally and he violated the law, and this is the attitude that the service takes. However, one of the problems has been that a lot of these people who came into this country didn't come here to look for work. They came here to visit the relatives that were already here. And the sad part about all this is that in the foreign countries, if an individual tells the consulate, I have a relative in the United States, no matter how remote, that consul generally will not give him a visa to come and visit these people. Say, oh, you're going to the States to stay, and therefore we're not going to give you a visa. So the only alternative to seeing his parents then is come across the border. So they come over, and once they're here, even though they may have the intention of going right back again, they start thinking about it and say, well, if I go back, I may not get through the next time. So they stay. But a lot of the illegal aliens that you have today came that way to the United States and not to look for opportunities of work. Some of them, of course, came over as a result of the war in Nicaragua and Salvador.
Now, the interview we saw with Esperanza Sciortino occurred in 1985 between her and Rob Hinton, and then it was estimated that the Hispanic population would double by 1988. Well, here we are in 1987. Is that happening? Are we seeing that happen?
I think there's quite a bit of an increase since that time, but I think that the flow is going to stop now for a while because everybody's going to take a wait-and-see attitude and see what happens. They're hearing about the fact that they can't get jobs now. Employers who employed illegal aliens are firing them right and left, unjustly, unfortunately, because if an employer had a person working for them prior to November 6th, they could continue to employ him, and they would not be they would not have to worry about sanctions being imposed upon them.
So there's a lot of confusion about the new law.
There is quite a bit, and part of it has resulted from the fact that the language is not clear, and the whole Immigration Reform and Control Act is a hodgepodge of different things that were put together at the last minute. There was various bills in Congress, and when they didn't pass the bills as they were, they took little pieces of this and little pieces of that and put it together. They conflict all over the place. There's contradictory language in it, and there are a lot of injustices in the new act, of course.
Being involved in the Hispanic community as you are, what are some of the other concerns that are facing the Hispanics in Louisiana right now? You mentioned jobs. That's number one for everyone.
Well, the main concern, of course, is this immigration bill as to what it's going to do to the relatives of these people that are here or the ones that are going to come in the future. That's the main concern. And, of course, the job situation is always there. Now, the other situation is what is going to happen to these people who are going to be sent back. They're going to create a problem in their own countries because there's unemployment due to the wars in Central America, and people just have no opportunity to find jobs down there. And here, of course, they're going to make it almost impossible for them to remain if they don't qualify under this law. The sad part about the law is that if they really intended to legalize the illegals, why didn't they do it in an easier way? They've got all kinds of deadlines and traps in it that just about appears to be an effort that was made to get sanctions in rather than legalize, and that the legalization was thrown in to boot to get the sanctions. There are all kinds of traps and deadlines. The illegal alien hardly reads the paper. The peons don't watch television to a great extent. A lot of them don't speak English. And so consequently, they're not aware of the pitfalls in the new act about the deadlines that they have to meet within a certain time. And there's so many deadlines and so complicated, and the interpretations are so bad that people are going to be hurt pretty badly, and a lot of them are going to wind up being deported. They're exposing themselves to the situation of maybe facing deportation at a later date.
Deportation is a pretty nasty business, and you were talking about earlier some of the experiences that you had dealing with immigration. Do you have any ideas why the wave in the country is against people from other countries? What's going on, in your opinion?
Well, I think that a lot of the problems in the United States today are being blamed on the aliens, especially the illegals. The talk is that the illegal comes over here, takes a job away from an American. That may be so to a small extent. Generally, the alien contributes a lot to this country. Some of your biggest inventors, the best known, and your scientists are aliens or who were aliens at one time. People in the shuttle, for instance, or who developed the rockets, Werner von Braun, Einstein, people who came over to this country and really contributed to this country. You have a lot of those. But the ordinary alien contributes in a way that he becomes a consumer here. And this is the point that everybody misses. When an alien comes here, that's another consumer. He buys shoes, he buys shirts, he buys ties, he buys socks, he buys radios, he buys TVs and everything else. The talk is that he sends all his money back home. That may be to a certain extent. But he also consumes food every day of the week. So he's helping the farmer, he's helping the manufacturers by being a consumer of everyday products.
Well, having an Office of Hispanic American Affairs is bound to help shed some light on the problem, which is how I got you here. But what other kinds of things are being done in the Hispanic community to help these people?
Well, they're trying to help them in many ways. The people who are running away from the wars in Central America, of course, are being given shelter by friends and by relatives. They help them to try to legalize them, help them to try to get jobs in every possible way that they can.
And there's no other effort being made on a government or a local level that you know of, other than concerned citizens like yourself?
Well, there is a government effort, of course, to try to do something for a lot of them, especially for the Cubans and the Haiti population to a certain extent. But for the average alien that comes in, there's not too much of an effort being made. Now, you have outfits like Catholic Charities and some of those charitable organizations that do help and try to aid the alien who needs help.
I see.
But let me say this, that the average alien doesn't go out and get public help. He works for what he gets. And he's a hard worker, he does a good job, he's conscientious, and he's honest about his work.
Often in jobs that Americans won't take.
That is correct. Most jobs that they take are jobs that no one wants at any price.
Okay, the situation at Oakdale, I already said that is not, they're not your ordinary immigrants. These are people who've gotten in trouble with the government. What's going to happen to them?
Well, the ones that are that have committed lesser crimes or minor crimes, I understand that they're going to be trained in some trade or something and rehabilitated and turned out into the public to remain here. The real hardened criminal, they're going to keep them there, and eventually they hope to get them out of here to Cuba. I don't know how they're going to do it as long as Fidel says no.
They just won't be able to go back.
That is correct.
Well, what's in the future for the alien in Louisiana?
I think they face a bright future. The alien is a hard-working individual, and he'll make his way known in the United States. He tries to educate himself one way or another. He tries to get by, and eventually he succeeds in whatever he does. You'll find that most aliens, sooner or later, go up the ladder because they're ambitious. They come from lands where they don't have the opportunity. The opportunities in this country are unlimited. If you really want to work and you really want to try, you can get somewhere.
How do they find you when aliens get in trouble? How do they find a lawyer such as yourself?
Well, by word of mouth is one way, and the other way, of course, I have a radio program in Spanish on immigration matters, and every Saturday, and that also brings them in.
I see. And I guess the next question is, what's in the future for David Kattan? You are a former alien. You're now an American citizen. How long have you been in this country?
Since 1927. I was a young kid when I came over here, and I was brought over by one of my dad's friends, put me in boarding school at Holy Cross in New Orleans, went there 7 years, then went to Loyola, graduated in law school, and continued and remained here practicing attorney.
Would you say that your opportunities increased dramatically when you came to the United States?
Oh, yes, there's no question about it. The opportunities here are great. It's only a matter of how high you want to go and how hard you want to work.
And how did you become a citizen?
Of course, by applying. But I worked hard for it, I studied for it, and I wanted to become a citizen, and I finally did, and I'm proud that I am a citizen. And I think that most of us that have become citizens who have come from abroad make better citizens in the sense that we realize what we have. The average American doesn't realize what they have. They take for granted the liberty that they have. They take for granted all of the things, educational and benefits that they get. We learn to appreciate them more because we didn't have these things. And when we come here, we learn to become better Americans by doing that. And we try to instill this spirit into other people, including Americans, by the way.
We're glad to have you.
Thanks.
Very glad to have you. One more question is, what could Americans do in order to help the aliens in the United States? First of all, I know there's a bad attitude right now because we're trying to blame the unemployment problems and everything on anything. I mean, anything that comes along, it's been blamed on women in the workforce, it's been blamed on blacks in the workforce, and now it's being blamed on the aliens in the workforce. But what can we do as private citizens?
Well, first learn the distinction separate the good from the bad. We do have some bad aliens. Take the Cuban criminals. And unfortunately, the Cuban criminals that Castro sent out, are the ones that are giving the Latin population a bad name. They're committing crimes all over the place. And however, the average Latin is not that way. He's a peaceful individual. He's timid, and he doesn't want to get in trouble, so he stays away from everything. If the Americans would only realize that, and also realize that the alien brings something of a different culture to this country, and they bring their ideas, and they're hardworking people, and they want to succeed, and they don't want to take something away from the American people. They want to contribute to the American economy, and they do as consumers.
And that's what America's all about. Thank you very much for coming. We've been talking to David Kattan, an attorney from New Orleans who specializes in immigration law. That's it for this week's program. Be sure to join us next week for another edition of Folks. Bye-bye.